Alright, kind of a response video to Joe, if you'll accept it. Look, we got to continue the conversation. We've got no one else to talk to, right? Except each other. So we might as well. Now, I'll try to explain this another way. The way the system is that people who get rich, acquire wealth. They're acquiring. What basically is happening is there's a transfer of ownership. That's what debt basically is. It's a transfer of ownership. And all paper in the economy should be an attachment to an asset. There's an asset somewhere, and the IOU is for the asset. And what we've done is, in some mechanisms like the stock market and federal debt, we're basically allowed to sell the future production, stuff that hasn't been produced yet. That's basically what's being bought and sold. So the stock market's really inflated in terms of its value, because what's being incorporated into the value of those pieces of paper is future production, future stuff that doesn't exist yet. It's an IOU for the stuff that doesn't exist yet. And when the government sells bonds, they're doing the same thing. They're selling future tax revenues that will be taxed on labor or production that hasn't been produced yet, on stuff that hasn't been produced yet again. So all this future value has been shoved into our current economy, and it's getting counted in GDP numbers. Like I said, I don't know how you can have such contempt for these wheelers and dealers, these bankers and these schemers, and then you use their numbers and say, oh, we could print $200-300 billion a year based on GDP numbers. Well, the GDP numbers have incorporated into them the value of all that stuff that hasn't been produced yet. It's an inflated number. It's a bullshit number. I don't even want to haggle over this, because it's really so trivial in a way. We're talking about a pretty small amount of money in terms of a tax increase. If I said I was going to increase taxes by $200 billion a year, it wouldn't give anybody a heart attack. So why not just pay the way? Why print any of this money at all unless it's absolutely necessary? Unless you find that money's becoming too valuable and people start shoving it into their mattresses. All you have to do is keep money, a little bit of inflation in it. So I've said it before. All you have to do is make it deteriorate a little bit, just so people don't have an incentive to hold it. And then money will do exactly what it's supposed to do. It'll function as a transfer currency. You won't mind having it for a day or two, or a month, or even 6 months, but you wouldn't want to hold on to it as cash. You would want it to be somewhere being invested or doing something, because just sitting as cash, it will deteriorate. And so you don't want people to hold it. You want them to buy property, or buy a commodity, or buy a house, or buy a car, buy something, because that thing will have more value to their life than the money will, because the money will degrade over time. Alright, so that's done. So this whole obsession about how money is printed, to me, is irrelevant. All that matters is that when you have too much of it in the economy, you create inflation. And that's all that matters. And that you devalue, because workers get paid with currency. That's the only way currency means anything, really, is the fact that workers get paid in currency. And so if you corrupt currency, the rich don't own currency. They own certificates. They own other pieces of paper that are turning into something more valuable than this currency thing. As we demonstrated when we bailed out the banks. We bought a bunch of their junk and gave them good currency for it. Destroying the currency. And obviously, presumptively stating that somehow these certificates were worth something. They weren't worth anything. Alright, so the point I'm trying to stress here, that everybody just keeps whitewashing over like it can't possibly happen that the rich get too rich. But the point is, they have. And you even use the word, we've consumed too much. Well, that's a canard. That's nonsense. We obviously haven't consumed too much. There was people to make the stuff, and there was people that consumed the stuff. So it obviously wasn't too much. You can't consume too much. Too much would be like I mean, obviously we consumed unethically because the producers we took it from were getting horribly underpaid. But no one's worried about that. No one's complaining about exploiting the cheap labor. Okay, so that's not on the table as a subject. So if we're going to assume that the production was ethical, then obviously it worked out just great. The producers got paid, the workers, and the consumers got to consume. And the only reason why it can't just keep going the way it's going right now is because the middleman, the rich, okay, they want more. They want to cut, all right? They want to liquidate it somehow and turn it into an asset that they can hold in their hands or something, something. And they want profit. And they can't extract any more because we've already included a whole big, huge pile of the future as the stuff. And obviously the present stuff can't pay those future obligations. There's not enough current stuff, okay, to pay back the IOUs, because the IOUs are for stuff that doesn't exist yet. It's for stuff in the future, for promises of the future. And so let's just say all those promises are all those IOUs aren't something these people are living on. This is something they own. This is surplus. That's the nature of surplus. Surplus goes to find ownership. It attempts to transfer ownership. That's what people do with money. They buy something and transfer ownership to themselves. And it's through that mechanism that this thing is going to be destroyed. Is because they want to try to liquidate future stuff. They want to try to cash in. They want gold that hasn't been dug out of the ground yet. I don't know how to quite... I mean, there's got to be a great metaphor for this, and I'm not going to find it. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically cash in for gold that hasn't been dug out of the ground yet. I mean, that probably is a good way to put it. They're trying to claim ownership of assets that don't exist yet. So it's impossible for them to exercise their claim, because they want their claim to be real. They don't want to be a stock certificate anymore, a piece of paper. They want to hold an actual asset because they're going to panic. And it's just because of their panic that this whole thing is going to crumble. And again, Nick will concede. I think you might concede. I think a lot of people will concede that what's going to happen is going to be horrible. It's happening in countries now. Nick points it out. Ireland, they're going to lose their health care. They're going to lose their civilization in a lot of respects. There's going to be higher crime, and there's going to be huge deprivation. People will die. That's going to be a fact. A lot of people, okay, if Nick's right, a lot of people are going to die. And he'll defend that because we have to uphold this idea that somehow we have to pay back our surplus obligations to the rich. We have to somehow honor their ownership of our future. And that's all it's about. It's just about their paper, their stupid fucking paper. It's not about the rich dying. It's not about the rich living horribly. Okay, yeah, maybe they won't be able to live quite as well because they won't be able to extract an income from their ownership. So, yeah, they might have to tighten their belt a little. They might even have to go to work. How obscene would that be? They might even have to get a job. Oh my fucking God. But they're not going to die. They're not going to starve to death. They're not going to get cancer. Nothing horrible is going to happen to these fucking rich jackasses. Alright? But by taking care of them, by protecting them, by honoring their claim to the future, by honoring their claim to assets that don't exist, by attempting to honor that claim, we are going to kill perhaps millions of human beings. That's how fucking... And you wonder why I'm a little angry, and I'm pissed off, and I'm intolerant, and I have no patience for this conversation. This is like you're standing on a goddamn top of a hill, and on one side of the hill are a huge number of starving people. On the other side of the hill is a huge wheat field. And somehow these assholes, you can't convince these assholes that all they have to do is walk up the fucking hill. Walk up the fucking hill. There's a whole bunch of food over there. No, they're just going to sit there and starve to fucking death. All right? Because why? Because they have some taboo. No, that's the taboo hill. It's like Planet of the Apes. They put up little stick figures or something, and no, that's the fence, man. We can't cross this, the theoretical fence. We've got to protect the rich. The rich are what makes our lives possible. We can't have a life without the rich. The owners, we must have the owners. I mean, it's just so fucking goddamn stupid. And so that's why, yeah, I have no patience. I'm so frustrated that I have to waste time arguing with you about stupid fractional reserve banking when it has nothing to do with the problem. All right? Because all of that fractional reserve banking crap was all secured loans. It was all collateralized. It was all legitimate claims on stuff that actually exists now. Houses and shit. Okay? It wasn't on claims on the future. And I agree with you on the national debt stuff. I mean, the government borrowing money is really dumb. But the government, if the government had printed $13 trillion, the dollar wouldn't be worth anything.